Is part of an inter-parliamentary union calling for diplomatic end to the Russia-Ukraine standoff. Our country has been criticized for largely being silent or scared to speak out against Russia, the history between the two countries. Now, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, National Assembly Speaker, is joining us now to talk about the role South Africa is going to play in the Inter-Parliamentary Union Special Task Team. It's a task force that has been set up just last month. Speaker, good afternoon, and thank you very much for your time. Welcome. I don't know if I should say congratulations or not. I know it's been a month now since you joined your other colleagues from other parliaments as part of the IPU's Special Task Force on the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
Yes, thank you very much, Dan. Yes, maybe yes, as South Africa, we should be congratulated because at least there is recognition of the fact that South Africa can play a mediation role in areas or when there is conflict. I believe that, Inter-parliamentary Union consists of members of the whole global village. And the fact that a decision was taken that we should form part of the task team, I believe that there is confidence that we'll be able to add our voice to a conflict, peaceful resolution of the conflict in Ukraine.
Yeah, the IPU believes in dialogue, believes in mediation and diplomacy, but the war is still going on. I know it's still early days. It's just about a month or so since this was decided. I think it was in Indonesia where the last assembly was. Have you made any progress at all? I mean, are there any actions that the IPU's task force has been doing in this regard so far?
Well, we have made progress in that we have been meeting. Yesterday, we had our second meeting. The most important step we have taken, which is very critical, is that we need to be acceptable to both Russian parliaments and the Ukrainian parliamentarians. They need to accept that we are coming in and we are adopting an impartial stance to what is happening, and that ours is to plead with them, to influence their governments, to call for cessation of hostilities, to ensure that their governments engage in a mediation process. Of course, there's concern about humanitarian crisis, which we are seeing in that area of the globe. But even that, as we talk humanitarian support, we realize that, and we acknowledge that at our meetings, that there are organizations which are meant to deal with those kinds of issues. What is of paramount for us as South Africa as we go into that task team, we are informed by generally the position of South Africa, that South Africa is not a nation of warmongers. South Africa is a nation that always opts for a peaceful resolution in any problem. South Africa had found itself at some point in a situation where scores of people were killed. But what did we do ultimately? Ultimately, we ended up sitting and opting for a negotiated settlement. Now, the situation we are seeing is not correct. It cannot be good. Human rights of young women, children, and people living with disabilities are being violated. But we are going into the task team, and not as a neutral partner, I want to say, because neutrality is something else. We're going in as an impartial partner who seeks to find a solution by way of influencing both parliament not to support a war.
Is this an indication, sorry, Speaker, is this an indication, what you've just said, that you are not indifferent to the plight of the people of Ukraine?
I'm not indifferent to the plight of both people of Ukraine and the people of Russia. We are not, we've never in South Africa ever supported a situation where people's human rights are being trampled upon. People are being killed. And I'm saying to you now that in this instance, we are saying, parliaments of the two countries, you have a responsibility to influence your governments. You have a responsibility to even opt to refuse to pass budgets which are going to be used in this kind of conflict.
So
even here in South Africa, if the president is to deploy soldiers, for instance, he has an obligation to report to Parliament. And therefore, if as parliamentarians we stand up and say, no, that's it, we're not getting involved in a war, if there are all possibilities that we may not see the kind of which is shown on our TV
Now,
screens.
Speaker, as we conclude in this little time that we have on this Friday afternoon, I just want to bring it closer home, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I understood there were reports last month or so that the Ukrainian embassy was hoping that you would also, as the head of the South African Parliament, be engaging with the head directly of the Parliament of Ukraine, Kiev, or even visit there, for example. What are your thoughts on that? Has there been any progress on that? Are you open to doing so?
I am very open to visiting Ukraine as part of the mandate I have from the IPU. I am not going to visit Ukraine because people want to impose views on me about what is happening in Ukraine. Even yesterday, if I may say, at the meeting, we were discussing our possible visit to Ukraine. But the emphasis in everything which I'm saying should be, or the underlying issue is, you cannot go to a country if the reception is not good. For now, we have received response from both Russia and Ukraine, and I know that Ukraine has put certain conditions for this kind of mediation. So I'm aware I was invited. And yes, I did turn it down for now because I want to be part of a collective which I have been appointed to join and and demonstrate the importance of being impartial in situations where people are likely to be murdered, in situations where there's devastation of life, in situations where human rights of people are trampled. As South Africa, we are on the side of justice all the time. As South Africa, we always say, go for a resolution of the conflict. Find peaceful means to do that. And if we're going to be screaming at the top of our voices, run to Ukraine, come back and say, oh, we saw streams of people crossing the border. Yes, we saw people being killed. Then what about, we have to see. In fact, our visit will be both to Russia and to Ukraine, because the conflict is not about Ukraine. The conflict is between the two countries, namely Ukraine and Russia.
Okay, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, the Speaker of South Africa's National Assembly, who's been appointed to this new task force of the Global Inter-parliamentary Union, the IPU.